Hi there Waltineers, I'm Jack and this is DSNY Newscast, and out of all the massive projects that were announced at D23 last year, there's still one left that I'm yet to talk about in greater depth here on the channel, and that project is the Lion King attraction and the Lion King themed land of the Pride Lands that was announced to be coming to Disneyland Paris. And to be more specific, it's going to be going into Walt Disney Studios Park, which is the second park at Disneyland Paris that's currently undergoing a major transformation of that park, and in actual fact is actually going to have an official renaming of that park to Disney Adventure World fairly soon. But for those who have been following this channel over the last couple of years, you'll know that I've spoken about the rumours of this Lion King ride and Lion King land at Disneyland Paris quite a few times, but it was still surreal to see it finally get announced at D23. So to finally see Disney commit to building a Lion King ride-through attraction is just fantastic to see. But when it was announced on stage at D23, they did so with this piece of artwork, which showcases Mufasa up on Pride Rock, Rafiki, Timon and Pumbaa and Simba in the foreground, and obviously the waterfall drop as well. But this is very clearly inspired by the 2019 remake of The Lion King, which led to some confusion as, alongside the vague descriptor for the project, made people question, is this going to be themed around the 2019 remake or the animated classic from 1994? And lo and behold, a couple of days later, Disney came out with a statement that said that the attraction will be based on the 1994 animated movie, and that the concept art released for D23 is illustrative only, as we are in the early stages of the project. So we do have it confirmed that this is going to be themed around the 1994 animated movie classic of The Lion King instead of the remake in 2019, which I personally feel is the correct direction to go with this project, as after all, when you say The Lion King to most people, they're immediately going to think of the animated classic version and not the 2019 version. So as you can see in this artwork here, where I've modified it to add in the 1994 animated characters instead, this is what we're going to be getting. Now, the next day after the presentation, Disney revealed lots of new models for these various projects, and the Lion King actually showed up in two separate models, which I want to get to, as we can often deduce quite a lot of information from these models and uncover some of the mysteries surrounding this project. So the first one where the Lion King showed up was the general overview model of the transformation of Walt Disney Studios Park with the whole Adventure Bay area. And as we can see, the Lion King is going to be located exactly where the Star Wars land was originally slated to go within the permits back in 2018. So the Lion King is directly replacing that expansion spot there around the Adventure Bay Lake. And then the second model was more of a detailed model with a scale replica of the Lion King attraction and the Pride Land area. And I actually want to say a special thanks to DLP Report right now for this 3D scan of this detailed model that you can see here. And I'll put a link to this down below in the description box so you can go check it out for yourself, as it's phenomenal work here by DLP Report. But this actually brings me to the first thing I want to talk about, which is the ride vehicle design and the inconsistency between the artwork and the model itself. Now, within the artwork, we can see that it's eerily reminiscent of Tiana's Bayou Adventure, or formerly Splash Mountain at Disneyland, and it's got the same log flume style design of one person per row and all the guests consecutively in rows lined up there in the log flume. But then when we look at the model, we can see that it's actually 3 guests per row and there's 4 rows of guests, so there's 12 people within the boat itself instead. Now, where I'm leaning towards this is, considering that Disney has already come out and said that the artwork was for illustrative purposes only and it was from the early stages of a project, whereas we know that they kind of do this kind of artwork for blue sky conceptual phases that we might be looking at here with the artwork, whereas when it comes to models, it takes Imagineering a lot longer to build these maquettes, very carefully crafted, and they have all the details and all the ideas built and designed properly for the maquettes. So I'm trusting the detailed model here instead of the artwork for what we're going to be expecting. So the actual ride vehicle design itself should have 3 people per row and 4 rows, so 12 people per boat, which is, for an example, similar to Frozen Ever After, which is going to be opening next year, and that will have 4 people per row and 4 rows, 16 people per boat. And then that brings us to the next thing, which is the height of the drop itself, and we have to eyeball this from just looking at the model itself, but it's roughly around 3 times the length of each one of the boats themselves. Now, we all know that Tiana's Bayou Adventure is a 52-foot drop or 16-meter drop on that ride, and this seems to be probably smaller than that drop. And just judging by the model here, it's hard to guess this, but it's probably around a 35-foot drop, give or take maybe a few feet. Now, I know there's nothing stopping them from doing a larger drop, as after all, the Jurassic Park ride at Universal Orlando has 20 people per boat, and that does an 85-foot drop as part of its attraction. But also there's some other things to consider here, which is the climate, in terms of you don't want to get the guests too wet from, the splashdown zone of the attraction itself, because it's a colder climate out in Disneyland Paris. Even in summer, it's nowhere near the heat as you get in Orlando. And I know they can control to some degree, but the weight of the boat does still matter. And also the incline of the boat. Now, Tiana's Bayou Adventure is a 47-degree angle for the incline for that drop. This might be more of a shallower angle for the drop itself, which would mean that they could do a longer drop if they wanted to. But a lot of these things come into consideration here. I'm not some sort of engineer behind this stuff, so I don't want to get into the weeds of this too much, but I don't think that this is going to be a traditional log flume. I think it will be more of a traditional boat ride with a big drop instead. And then the other important thing to talk about here is the size of the show building, judging by the model itself. And if we look at the 3D render here and do a top-down perspective, that is the layout of what this show building is going to look like along with the Pride Lands area. And then if we cross-reference that with the model from the day before they put the Lion King in place on that model, we can cross-reference that with the rest of the backstage roads from the satellite imagery, and I can now say that this here that you can see on screen is a rough approximation of where the boundaries of the show building for the Lion King attraction and the Pride Lands area will be within the actual construction of the future Disney Adventure World and the Adventure Bay area. Now, if I were to go one step further, which of course I have, and measure this out on Google Earth and give a kind of rough eyeballing of the show building, I measure it out as an approximate range of 110,000 square feet to 120,000 square feet for this attraction show building. And the reason why it's within that range is because we don't know where the front side of the show building ends, as it's obscured by the Pride Rock landscape theming. But this is a huge show building, and to put it into context here, the Disneyland Paris version of Pirates of the Caribbean, that show building is approximately 100,000 square feet. So even if, let's say, I've overestimated and it's at the low end of 110,000 square feet or even lower than that, but above 100,000 square feet for this show building, we're looking at an attraction which is going to be comparable to Pirates of the Caribbean in terms of duration of the actual ride. So ride time being roughly 10 minutes for a Lion King attraction, which for a traditional boat ride is fantastic and a major boost to Disneyland Paris if that turns out to be true. The other thing to talk about here is the height of the show building, judging by the models. And as we can see, the exterior emergency stairway on the side of the building means that the majority of the building is probably around 3 or 4 stories tall, which is pretty standard for attraction show buildings, especially boat rides. And the tallest point of the show building, this is some guesswork here, but I reckon is around 6 or 7 stories tall at its tallest point there. And so this is a very tall show building that looks to be even taller than the Frozen Ever After building at Adventure Bay, which in itself is a tall building. So just overall, just looking at the model here, you can even see that there are some animals walking towards Pride Rock, which I imagine might be limited motion outdoor animatronics like what you see over in the Jungle Cruise. And so it's a very impressive project in terms of size, scale and scope, and that's pretty much all we can deduce right now from the model. But now let's talk about the construction side of things. And I personally can't wait to see all of this construction with my own eyes, and I'm actually going to be in Disneyland Paris at the end of February, so if you see me around, be sure to say hi. But whenever I do go abroad, I like to use a VPN on all my own personal devices. And that actually brings us to the sponsor of today's video, which is Surfshark. And what Surfshark is a VPN service, and what VPN stands for is Virtual Private Network. And what this essentially means is that wherever you're located within the world, you can virtually transport your internet connection to any other country around the world. And with Surfshark, they have over 3,200 different servers around the globe. But where this comes in really useful is using streaming services, for an example, as oftentimes the streaming service will have content that is region locked to your country. But with a VPN, you can unlock the entire library of content from that streaming service by transporting to any other country around the world. And also, when you travel abroad, it also means that you can connect back to your home country via the VPN, so you can use all your regular apps and services that you would normally use. And also, if you use a public Wi-Fi network, it also offers an extra layer of security and protection when accessing sensitive information like your banking apps and stuff like that. And so if you want to give Surfshark a go on iOS, Android, Mac or Windows, be sure to click the link down below in the description box, or go to www.surfshark.com/DSNY Newscast, and you'll get an extra 4 months with any purchase of a yearly subscription. And they also have a 30-day money-back guarantee. But coming back to the construction, they've actually begun some of the preliminary work on the Lion King expansion spot here. And it is just preparation work right now, land clearing and stuff like that. And it actually falls under the previous permit for when it was the Star Wars land going to this location. But they can't begin any vertical construction and do any foundation work until they file new permits for the Lion King project. So we should be getting those permits fairly shortly. And the reason for that is that Disney has announced that they do want to begin construction on this project in 2025. So we can't be too far away from getting the permits for the Lion King project in this year as well. And also, talking a bit about the actual attraction itself, Imagineering released these images of Disney legend Andreas Deja consulting on the attraction project at Imagineering headquarters, as he was the lead character animator for Scar in The Lion King from 1994. And if we focus in on the background of these images, we can see some of the effects. Like, for an example, I think we can see some blacklight paint techniques that seem to be quite reminiscent of Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, with the kind of paint techniques that they use for the larger show set pieces within that attraction. And also, in the foreground of this image, we can see a leaf that is very stylized and kind of reminiscent in a way of Small World in terms of its design. And it's the I Just Can't Wait to Be King segment, which I think might elicit some of that Small World vibe with some of the animal stylized Mary Blair dolls. I think that could really work for this show scene within the attraction, if that's what they do there. But overall, in terms of when we could expect to see this attraction open, if they're beginning construction in 2025, it's roughly going to take 4 years to maybe 5 years to build this thing. So 2030, I reckon, is when this will open. But also, I do know that Disney is making a big deal out of the 30th anniversary of The Lion King right now. And they've even got a special on Disney Plus for The Lion King's 30th anniversary, which is The Lion King at the Hollywood Bowl that they're pushing in a big way. So 2029 would actually be the 35th anniversary of the animated classic from 1994. So could we be looking at 2029 as another anniversary celebration of the film with the opening of this attraction? Who knows? But it's probably going to take them 4 or 5 years to build this at Disneyland Paris, because they are also building restaurants and shops alongside the theming for this attraction as well. But then also, let's move on to the rest of the construction at Walt Disney Studios Park. We've got World Premiere, which is formerly the Studio One building, the first building you enter into at Walt Disney Studios Park, is set to reopen in spring. And we've got some new construction images, and as we can see, the interior theming is going to be inspired by the Disney Burbank studio lot, along with the iconic animation building. That's where Walt's office was located, and is located still on the Burbank lot. So those iconic shutters and windows and just the exterior design of that building is iconic to the Disney Burbank lot. And thanks to DLP Works for these incredible construction images here from this aerial perspective, we can see that amazing progress has been made on the entire Adventure Bay area, and also the Adventure Way street, which will be leading up to Adventure Bay, which is going to be heavily inspired by the Champs-Élysées in Paris. for Adventure Way. There's kind of like a second Main Street, but in this park instead of the Disneyland Park. And along the Adventure Way, we can see there'll be Adventure Way Gardens, which will be a nice little area where supposedly they'll have some meet and greets and stuff like that around there. And there'll also be a new entrance to the Toy Story Playland, which, as we can see here, the new Woody and Jessie welcome statues are now in place and ready to be unveiled. As before, they only had the Buzz Lightyear statue into that land, so now they've got these new statues here for the Adventure Way entrance into that land. And then also you've got Rapunzel's Tangled Spin, which is a teacups ride, basically a nice flat ride within the areas there as well, but themed to Tangled for that attraction. And then this huge building that's right at the end of Adventure Way that looks over Adventure Bay Lake is called the Regal View Restaurant and Lounge, and this will be a 250 seat table service restaurant with 75 seats at the bar as well, which will do Disney Princess meet and greet character dining at this restaurant. And this will have phenomenal views of the nighttime spectaculars on the Adventure Bay Lake area, which you can see in this piece of concept art here with Moana on the projected fountains in the middle. But in many ways, this nighttime spectacular, which will debut in 2026 with the rest of the Adventure Bay area, will be a little bit like World of Colour, but World of Colour in the round, as you'll be able to see it from all these various parts around the actual bay itself. And thanks to this construction image from Disney, you can see the square-shaped platform right in the centre of the lake where the fountains will actually be located for this nighttime spectacular. But then the main focus of all this construction is Arendelle, World of Frozen, where we can see that the mountain range here in this photo from DLP Report, you can see the workers scaling this side of the North Mountain here from Frozen. And I know that this mountain is going to be forced perspective, but even from the view that we can see here, it's still an extremely impressive scale without even using forced perspective. And so this, along with Elsa's Ice Palace, will be the new icon of Disney Adventure World, which will be drawing guests down Adventure Way to the entire bay area down there as well. And that brings me to the other thing, which is the third expansion for this Adventure Bay area. Now, obviously we're talking a bit further into the future here. We haven't even got Lion King constructed yet, but there will be a third spot, an expansion space round that lake. And where it's roughly going to go is going to be where the previous studio tram tour, or now known as Cars Road Trip, is currently located. And if I'm being brutally honest here, the Cars retheme of the tram tour was very much a quick retheme to add a little bit more life and longevity to the studio tram tour, but it's most likely not in the long-term plans to keep this around for a long time. It's more of a placeholder right now to add an extra attraction to the park, as obviously the Catastrophe Canyon segment is still very impressive within the attraction, but they most likely have longer-term plans for this huge piece of land here that's off the Adventure Bay area. So if you're looking for another expansion beyond Lion King, that's the spot that it will most likely be, and to the left-hand side of it as well, expanding over there. And there's only been some tentative rumours on what that extra expansion could be, and it will probably come as no great surprise, but Avatar has been mentioned as an early rumour for a third expansion spot around the lake area. But either way, I'd probably expect them to announce another expansion spot around that lake towards the end of wrapping up construction on Lion King. So I would say probably D23 in 2028 is probably when we'll get the announcement for the next big land that they're going to expand around the lake area there. So that's everything in terms of this project right now. Lion King and the rest of the expansion area as well. But now it's over to you, the Waltineers, as I would like to know, what are your thoughts and opinions on the Lion King project, the Lion King ride, and what would you like to see within the attraction? What would make it an e-ticket from your perspective? What effects, what technology would you like to see used? Personally, I would like to see the Shanghai Pirates boat tech used within this attraction to add an extra level of suspense so the ride vehicles could spin and turn magnetically underwater. I think that would be a great use of that ride system within this attraction. Don't know if it will be using that, but there are rumours of using that within the Avatar attraction at Disney California Adventure. So supposedly they might be looking to use that ride system again. fingers crossed, I would like to see that ride system come to Disneyland Paris as well. And that's everything for today, but be sure to subscribe down below, hit the notification bell, and also check out the rest of the videos on this channel. And I'd also like to say a massive thank you to the official Waltineer Club over on Patreon for always supporting this channel. It is greatly appreciated. And also a special shout out to the Waltineer Gold members that you can see here on the screen right now, along with Waltineer Diamond members JC Russell, Justin Tupper, and Tim Parsons. And with that being said for today, I've been Jack, you've been you, and I'll see you real soon.